everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and today's video is going to be my November wrap up and my December TBR. So in November I read 18 books and I DNF'd 5, which I will explain later on as we get to those books. My average rating was 3.6, so a bit on the lower side this month. I did have a lot of 3-star and 3.5-star reads, but my page count was 7,108 pages. This is definitely my best reading month ever. So let's get into the books. So the first book I read in November was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. In this one we're following a soon-to-be couple, one of which is a single mother who's struggling to make ends meet, and the other one is a founder of a dating app which has a very scientific aspect to it. So they think that they can use your DNA and your chromosomes to find the perfect match for you, and they both, so he uses the app because obviously he's the founder, she as a joke one day signs up to the app, and then they get matched together. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars. This is my 3rd Christina Lauren book I've read, and I'm going to continue reading because I just really love their book. I really loved the scientific aspect of this. I thought the whole concept was really unique and very different to anything I've read in a romance book before. I loved the main couple. I loved the side characters. There is a sequel to this. I think it's called The True Love Experiment, which I've got from the library and I can't wait to read that one. Yeah, and this one was just a really cute romance and I'd highly recommend. The next book I read in the month of November was Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I gave this one a 3.5 stars. So in this one we're following the daughter of the Pirate King, and she has to get herself captured by an enemy ship in order to find a part of a map. So her family has one part of the map, this other family has another part of the map, and then there's a third family which has the third part of a map, and together the map will lead them to the Siren Island where lots of treasure is buried. So they're all after the other parts of the map. They don't know that she's deliberately got herself captured, and then we just kind of go from there, go on this adventure. This was a really fun YA fantasy. I think if I'd read this a few years ago I would have enjoyed it more. This was really fast paced and the writing style was really compelling. I also thought the setting was really cool. I haven't read too many pirate books or books set at sea, so that was really fun to read from. And yeah, I'm excited to continue on this series. It's just an easy YA fantasy to read. Then next up I read Keeper of the Lost Cities Stellaloon by Shannon Messenger, and I gave this one a 3.5 stars. So this is the 9th book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series, so I can't really say too much about the plot of this one. This series follows Sophie, who has been hiding in the human world until she discovers that she is in fact actually an elf. So she's taken away and lives with foster parents, and we kind of go from there. It's all about, I'm not really doing a very good job of describing this one. It's really hard because there's been 9 books and so much has happened, but it's about her learning about her abilities and her powers, learning about this world. This is really, really fun, and I'd recommend this even if you don't read middle grade books. This is really fun even from an adult perspective. However, I didn't really enjoy this book as much as the rest of the series. I definitely felt like this was more of a filler book. Not a lot happened in the 700 pages of this book compared to other installments, which was just constant action, constant reveals. This felt like a lot of nothing, and then just a little bit kind of happened at the end. But yeah, this one got a 3.5 stars. I then read The Falconer by Elizabeth May. So the past 3 books I read for reading the oldest books on my TBR challenge, so I'll link that one above. And again, I gave this one a 3.5 star. So in this one we're following a main character who I think is called Aliana. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. By day she is a daughter of a marquess, and by night she hunts fairies. She's been determined to find the fairy that killed her mother, and we just kind of go from there. We learn more about the fae in this world. Maybe they're not quite as we've been led to believe. This was really fun, but I don't think I'm really into fantasy romance. It's definitely heavy on the romance, and there's a love triangle which I wasn't really a fan of. This was left on a cliffhanger, and I am interested in continuing this series. Fantasy in this fantasy romance was actually really well explained, which I really enjoyed, and yeah, I hope to continue the series at some point in the future. I then read The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel to The Ex-Hex, and I gave this one 3 stars. So in this one we're following Gwyn, who is the cousin of the main female character in the first book, and Reese, the male love interest in the first book, his brother. And they met many years ago. They were attracted to each other but never pursued it, and then he moves to the town and opens a rival trinket magic shop to rival Gwyn's, and we kind of go from there. I did enjoy this, but I feel with Erin Sterling's writing style, the romance just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's not really a lot of build up, and it's really hard to connect and feel anything for these characters because it just feels like the romance just springs up out of nowhere. But it is a fun, easy romance with a bit of a witchy theme, which was quite fun, and I will be continuing the series. I've only got 1 more book to read, but yeah, this one was just a fun romance and not really too deep, but yeah, I did enjoy it, but I did only give it a 3 star. I then DNF'd Kingdom of the Feared by Kerry Manis Miss Galco. So this was part of the Final Book Support Group reading vlog, which I'll link above. I really enjoyed the first book in this series, but the second not so much. So in the first book, we're following our main character. We start the book with her discovering that her sister has been brutally murdered, and we're going along with the investigation as she tries to find out what actually happened to her sister. And then there's obviously, it's a fantasy romance, so the second book was just completely different to the first book, and I really did enjoy the first book. When I tried to read the third book, and I couldn't get past maybe like 70 pages. I have to be honest, it's just too much sex. Like, there's so much going on with the plot, which is actually really interesting, but all our main characters are thinking about all the time is just sex, 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 and it's just like, can we focus on the plot for a bit? I have no problem with sex scenes at all. I love a good romance, nothing wrong with that. It was just too much, and I just couldn't. I was like, I'm not interested to read like 400 pages of just them wanting to have sex with each other the whole time. So I DNF'd this one, and this series is not for me. And I know a lot of people enjoy it, but I just couldn't. For that same reading vlog, I then read The Damned by Renee Ahdieh. This is the second book in the Beautiful series by Renee Ahdieh, and I gave this one a 3.5 stars. So in this one, we're following our main character, and she flees from Paris and comes to live in New Orleans, and then she discovers that there's all sorts of magical creatures in New Orleans, and it's her getting tangled up with them. This one is an older YA fantasy, but I am really enjoying this series. So I did think the first book was very well written, very good, and the second one was a bit of a letdown. The first half of this book was very slow and not a lot really happened, but it did pick up in the second half of the book. The world really did open up in this installment, and I'm excited to see where we're going to go with this one, because I've got no idea. I then read Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in the Foundry Side series, which is an adult fantasy book kind of based around sort of Victorian era. It's not set, it's like a fantasy world, but it gives very Victorian era vibes with the technology and things like that. And in this world you can scribe items to make them, that's the magic system, and this is where you make them believe they can do certain things. So you can scribe a box to think it's heavier than it actually is. Robert Jackson Bennett does a way better job of explaining this magic system. So I gave this one 4 stars. This is a really good installment in the series. Not a lot of action, but the plot did progress really well, and I'm excited to see where we're going to go in the third and final book in this series. I then read 9 Liars by Maureen Johnson, which is the 5th book in the Truly Devious series, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. So in Truly Devious, we follow our main character Stevie, and she's a sort of amateur detective. She really loves true crime and things like that, and she goes to Ellingham Academy. It's a school for very gifted children, and many years ago at this academy, the founder's wife and daughter were kidnapped and murdered, and the case was never solved, and Stevie thinks she can solve the case. So that was the trilogy, and then we've had sort of 2 sort of standalones in this series, and then I think we're going to get another one. So in this one, the mystery was very interesting, but it was mainly about the romance. Like most of this book, the mystery was just like a background to this, which I didn't really enjoy, and the payoff was a bit disappointing as well. However, it was a quick and easy read, and I am excited to see what else this author comes out with in this series. Hopefully we go back to the interesting mysteries. I then read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey, and I gave this one 3 stars. So in this one, we're following our main character who's just come out of prison. She's only young and she's trying to get a job, and she walks past a window display for a very prestigious sort of like Debenham style store. She doesn't think the window display is very good, so the owner comes out and asks what she thinks could be done better. She gives some criticism, and then he offers her job, and then that's kind of where we go from here. This was a very cute Christmas romance. It was very smutty, and Tessa Bailey kind of went into she tried different things I wasn't expecting, but I did really enjoy this nonetheless, and there were some very deep topics covered. So it's all about our main character's just come out of prison, and it was about friendship and family, and how maybe someone who's been your friend for a long time, it doesn't actually have your true interests at heart, reconnecting with family, and all about finding yourself after sort of like a big ordeal. So yeah, I did enjoy this one, but I am only going to give it 3 stars. So I have kind of been on a bit of a thriller kick this past month or so. So I then read The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. This is the second book in the Housemaid series. So in the first one, we're following a main character, Millie, who gets a job as a housemaid for a very rich couple, but not everything is as it seems. And I'm not going to say too much of what happens, because I do think these books are best if you go in not really knowing what's going on. So this one was a really good sequel, not as good as the first one. I did give that one 5 stars, so it's going to be kind of hard to live up to, but there was a lot of twists that I didn't see coming, and this was a really good installment in the series. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue on with this series and see what else this author has in store, because I've heard nothing but great things about all of her books. I then read The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the second book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. So this series follows our main character Avery, and out of nowhere she finds out that she's been left a billionaire trillionaire's entire estate. Obviously his family are not very happy with this, and there's lots of games, lots of puzzles to solve as she tries to find out why on earth she's been left this man's entire inheritance. So this is a really fun sort of like YA mystery. It does run away with itself at times, and I did find myself getting like a bit confused as to sort of the relevance of some things. I do really enjoy the characters. I'm not really too invested in the actual story, but I do like the characters, so I am going to continue on and continue this series. So yeah, I gave this one a 3.5 stars. So another book for Final Book Support Group was Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Divine Rivals series, which follows two rivals at newspaper who are vying for the same columnist job. The sort of fantasy aspect of this world is that there are gods that are warring with each other, and it's very like World War II-esque inspired, but instead of countries fighting each other, it's two gods. So I gave this one a 3.5 stars, mainly because this felt like a repeat of the first book. I do think the first book could have just been a little bit longer, with sort of the final bit of this book added in. The first sort of half, maybe even like sort of 2/3 were very repetitive of the first book. Yeah, so this is just a fun sort of YA fantasy. It's nothing amazing, but it's a very cute concept, and I did enjoy this nonetheless, and I'm glad I finally finished this series. I then read The Deal by Elle Kennedy, which I gave 4 stars. So in this one we're following our main characters, Hannah and Garrett, and Hannah is the victim of a rape from many years ago, and she's going to college, and Garrett is like the captain of the hockey team. He's failing one of his classes, which Hannah is acing, and he pesters Hannah into tutoring him, and they start seeing each other, and we kind of go from there. So this was really, really cute. I absolutely loved this one. It was a really good new adult romance, but it also did cover some really heavy topics. Obviously, like I said, Hannah was the victim of rape when she was only 15 years old, and Garrett is also going through something that I'm not going to say because I don't want to spoil the book, but Hannah's rape is mentioned like on the first page, I think, so that's not a spoiler. But yeah, I do think the author handled the heavy topics in a really sensitive manner, and yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. I really loved our main couple, and I also love the side characters. I know we follow quite a few of them later on as the series progresses, but yeah, I really love this one, and I'm really excited to continue this series. So I'm just going to go through a couple of books that I DNF'd. So I'm doing a Read It or Unhaul It Fairy Loot challenge, which is going to be coming out, I think it's the next video after this. So the books that I've DNF'd was Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton, The Hurricane Wars by Thea Granzon, The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker, and A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saff. So I will not say too much about those books because I do go into the reasons that I DNF'd them, but mainly because I read a few chapters of them and they didn't really seem like anything special, or they just really weren't my thing. And you'll be pleased to hear that I have actually now unsubscribed from all of my Fairy Loot boxes because I'm just not getting on with the subscription anymore. So I then read Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey, which I gave 3.5 stars. So in this one we're following two characters, Beat and Melody. They are both the children of these two women who were in a very popular band together, and the band broke up, no one knows why, and the two people in the band hated each other for years and years. So Beat and Melody only met when they were about 16 on a show. They're now 30 years old, and they've both been approached by reality TV shows offering them £1 million each if they can get their mothers to reunite the band on Christmas Eve. And obviously, you know, romantic feelings start to happen, and yeah, this was a really cute Christmassy romance. And also I really loved the concept of music. It wasn't just the plot of these two characters falling in love, they had a lot else going on as well. I didn't love the male love interest. I do feel like he changed quite drastically over the course of this book, and not even in a good way. It just felt like she was writing maybe a couple of different characters. But yeah, I love the family dynamics in this. Just goes to show like not all families are what you expect, and I loved our characters learning to stand up for themselves. So yeah, this one was really fun. It wasn't like overly Christmassy, but yeah, I gave this one a 3.5. I still really enjoyed it. I then read The Gods Below by Andrea Stewart, and I gave this one 3 stars. So I only read this one maybe about a week or so ago, and I really couldn't even tell you what this is about. It was a very interesting concept, but I do feel like the execution for this one let this one down. So in this world there's different I would say like maybe towns, there's different like regions, and as time progresses they get like restored by the gods, and in the restoration, if you're caught in it, you basically either die or you become changed, so you can like grow wings, grow horns, things like that. So we're following two sisters who are separated. One is then like restored and one of them moves on to another place, and they're on like opposing sides of like a war. And yeah, it was a really interesting concept, but like I said, it just wasn't executed very well. It was very good in the beginning, a bit slow in the middle. The end was okay, but it was very anticlimactic, and I do think that like the plot in itself was just very uninteresting. I'm not going to be continuing on this series, and I'm also not going to be reading any more by this author. I've read 2 books by her now, and I just don't think her concepts are for me. Like the Bone Shard Daughter I didn't really enjoy either, so yeah, I think I'm going to call it quits with this author. I then read Homewrecker by J.M. Dalgliesh, I think that's how it's pronounced, and I gave this one 4 stars. So this one is kind of similar to The Housemaid, apart from we're following the perspective of the wife. Her daughter is kicked out of school and they need to find a tutor for her, and so her husband manages to find this woman, and it seems like this woman is wanting to like take over her life. This was a really fun thriller. It was really intense and really well written. I really struggled to put this one down, and I'd highly recommend this one if you enjoy thrillers. The ending felt a little bit rushed, but I still did enjoy it. I think maybe an extra 50 or so pages could have really hashed it out a bit better, and I'm excited to read a bit more by this author as well in the future. So like I said, I gave that one 4 stars. I then read The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. So this is a Mulan inspired fantasy. So our main character offers herself up in her father's place to fight in a war. Obviously she disguises herself as a boy. So there's a magic system that involves like jade, and these dragon spirits are encased in the jade, and with the dragon spirits, if you have the ability, you can perform magic. And yeah, this one was really interesting. It's set after the fall of the Wu dynasty as well, and I really do enjoy reading books that are sort of Chinese mythology inspired. The magic system was really interesting. I do wish it was explained a little bit better, but I do think because we were sort of learning about the magic system as our character was, the author can only tell us what the character knows, if that makes sense. The plot was really well developed. I really enjoyed all the characters in here, and it was left on a massive cliffhanger, so I'm really excited to read the sequel when that eventually comes out. And yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. So the last book I read was The Prisoner by B.A. Paris, and I gave this one 4 stars. So this one we're following our main character who finds herself married to a billionaire, and in the middle of the night one day they're both kidnapped and they're kept prisoner. So this was a really good thriller, and it had me hooked from page 1. It had a really interesting and really compelling plot. So I am quite new to the thriller genre. I am trying to get more into it. So for me, this was really exciting, and I'm really excited to read more from this author. I just really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. So yeah, I gave that one 4 stars. So that's all the books that I read in November. I'm just going to quickly go over a few books I'm hoping to read in December. So I'm currently reading The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. I'm also hoping to read a couple of Christmassy romances. So I'm hoping to read A Very Merry Bromance by Lisa K. Adams. Also All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox, and Love Like Farms by B.K. Borison. I also have 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis from the library. As I also mentioned earlier, I do also have The True Love Experiment, which is the sequel to The Soulmate Equation, so I'm hoping to get to that this month. And then yeah, I'm just hoping to kind of wrap up quite a few series. So I would like to continue on reading I can't remember what the series is called, but The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I'm hoping to read the 2nd book in that series. Hoping to read maybe The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. And then yeah, I've got a few library books out, so I've got those to read, and just hoping to read up and finish some series before the new year. So yeah, it is a bit of a loose TBR this month, but I don't want to list a load of books that like I'm not actually going to get to. I would also like to read a few more thrillers. I do have quite a few of those out from the library as well. So that's going to be it for this week's video. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and let me know what you think of them. Please remember to like this video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe for more bookish content. I post videos every Sunday, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye!